Hey everybody, thanks for joining. This is my phthalo green. I sent emails to y'all and said phthalo green, but any green that's dark is going to be good. This is mine. And what I do is I go into whatever paint store. I don't always go to Sherwin-Williams. As a matter of fact, this is PPG. I just said, hey, that dark green that you have behind the counter there, where you just put as much as you can of that in this ultra deep base. And then after doing a little bit of research, I learned that their deep green and deep blue is pretty universally comparable to phthalo green and phthalo blue. So don't sweat it if you don't have exact color names. And one of you, I think Susan, commented and asked about the green. Vermilion green is a good comparable green to this in tubes. So I've got green. This is what my yellow looks like. This is a Sherwin-Williams paint. And you know what? I'll tell you why I do use these Sherwin-Williams paints in particular, because they don't skin over that much on the top. This is not a commercial for them. They don't give me any money or free product. I just tried a lot of different paints, and these don't, since I like to work in large volumes on big walls a lot of the time, these handle a lot more similarly to the tubes of acrylic paints, which I also brought. But this is a low sheen factory bright yellow. This one comes tinted right off the shelf in this bright yellow, so it's very easy to just grab. And compared to cans of paint, it's expensive, but compared to tubes, it's cheap. So same story with the black. It's just in a label-less can. That's from Sherwin-Williams. It's a high gloss black, actually. I found that I like the darkness of high gloss black, but you know, it's your choice what you want the sheen to be on your paint. Brown is just a shortcut. Whenever I make brown in pictures, it's really just darkening and orange, but brown is a great shortcut to that. And sometimes brown has more color at this darkness than what I'm able to accomplish. By the time I add enough black to orange to get it to the darkness of brown, it's more gray than whatever. So that's the value of any kind of secondary color, something outside of your what you consider your primaries. You get those extra colors when you can't mix to quite the intensity level that you want, or just to work faster. That's also a very good reason. So then I've got my red, same thing. This is just like the yellow, just doesn't have a label on it. This is Sherwin-Williams paint, and it's all hammered with other colors. So I just kind of shake it around and stir in those other goobers of paint that are on top of there. I'll be dipping into these as I paint, and then after I progress a little bit, I'll pull out these. I warned you ahead of time that I'd be using these. So I brought some of my main tubes of acrylic. I don't want to try to paint the whole picture in this because it takes me more time, but not that much. Water-based paint flows pretty quickly out of the brush. So these are Grumbacher brand, but I'm not devoted to this either. I just especially like the brightness of this turquoise blue. The phthalo blue, when I add white, is very similar to what you see in the wave that I painted with those bright turquoise colors. Other phthalo blues, like I tried Winsor and Winton, and I just couldn't get a blue with the same intensity. So this Grumbacher, I did like the color, but they don't sponsor me. I don't have anything like that going on. So I'll pull up those later, and we can just do like a side-by-side comparison. But to me, they accomplish the same thing. Okay. That's a rundown on my paints. I got my white. This is the same thing, white right off the shelf at the paint store, and that one's also Sherwin-Williams. But like I said, wherever you get these, I think when you're practicing, it's nice to take the pressure off and get cheap paint so that you can just do one thing after another and have fun without worrying about the loss of products. So we want atmosphere in our picture, right? And so I need to do this background. I want to do it before I start my wave. And so atmosphere can be any color. It really can just be anything. I just need to know how to mix that atmosphere with my objects that are getting closer and closer in my picture. So in this one, I just kept the palette very simple, just red and yellow. It's an orange sky. And I'm going to show you a fast way to throw together an orange sky. You know, I'm going to use my smaller brush just so that I don't go too fast. Because if I do with this big brush, it's going to be done in 5 seconds, and then people are going to say, whoa, wait, back up. do that again, which I will. I'll do things again. If you want me to do things again, just say so. All right. So I'm going to put a bunch of globs of white on this canvas. So when I put the white on, I'm not trying to spread it out. So I could do this also with my tubes of acrylics as well. They're not going to drip as much. This paint's more runny. For that reason, it's faster. And so all I'm going to do is put enough white on there that I know that I can blend it all very quickly once I start to spread it around. By leaving it in these blobs, it's not drying. So if I start to spread this around, which is just, you know, I think second nature for a painter is to start spreading it around immediately, but you start losing your blending time when you do that. So I've found it very helpful to just use the better way to say this is count brush loads. So I just put 4 brush loads on here. One here, one here, one here, one here. 4 brush loads. And then I can remember that if I need to reference that ratio of paint that I'm going to mix later. So I'm going to go white right here in the middle where my brightest spot is. I'm going to go another one. I'm going to put 5 brush loads because this looks like I might need a little bit more as I try to spread it across to the edges of this canvas. So I mean, I think it's very typical. I'm not going to say in all cases, but in most cases, when light goes through a substance, it shifts its hue. And I'm not going to get all scientific on you and try to over-explain this, but a valuable thing to understand is things typically move toward yellow as they get brighter, and then toward violet as they get darker, just the opposite direction. Brighter is toward yellow. And so if you look at my little wave picture behind me, blue goes to green, which is toward yellow. So I don't necessarily just add yellow to the mix. Maybe green is a better option. It's just toward yellow. It doesn't mean it turns yellow. So blue might get a little greener. Red will get yellower when the sun blasts through this atmosphere. The brightest part's going to be yellower, and then I'm going to add red around the edges to make this look like a very illuminated sky. So let's do that. We'll put yellow around the edges of my white. So I've got 2 brush loads. Let's go 3. I don't know how much I'm going to want there, so we'll just see where 3 brush loads gets me. And this white's going to mix with that yellow and smear it all over this. It's going to get washed out. But yellow is very, very strong mixed with white. You get a lot of yellow. So now I need a little bit of red outside of that because I'm going to go white to yellow to red. So we'll take a couple small brush loads of red. And this paint has been sitting in this can for a while. It's starting to evaporate a little bit. So this feels a little bit more like what's in my tubes. It's not dripping down the canvas. And I actually like that about this paint. Even though I buy it in a can, it seems like it handles more similarly to the tubes. Okay, so now I'm ready to start blending this. I've got all of my paint mix. So I'll rinse the red out of my brush real quick. I didn't go over this yet, but I keep water handy. I keep a pail of water by me, and I rarely rinse my brush thoroughly. It's always just getting excess out of the brush because all the colors are mixing together anyway. I'm not really trying to get completely pure colors very often, except when I come back to do a little highlight or something and I really want my brightest color. So just getting the excess out is enough. And actually, I hate this brush. I've been using it so long, it's all, we call it fish-mouthed. That's a term they used to use on the paint crew when I was painting houses, is fish-mouthed, when it gets that split down the middle, because there's glue in there. And so, you know, the brush was cheap. I just trash them after I ruin them and then move to another one. So, rinse out my brush, and I'm going to start blending this together. I'm starting with the white area. Now, you definitely don't have to use this method to mix the paints. You know, this isn't a course on how to be like paint like me. I want to be able to just transfer this knowledge that makes these things look the way they do. And my hope is that you'll be able to just really comprehend what makes the visual difference on this and use your own technique to execute it. So then I hit the red when I'm done with the yellow portion, and I have this nice intense orange. But I'm going to be careful not to go back into the yellow and white. If I go back and forth too much, I'm going to lose my separation. I want blending. I just don't want too much. So try to time it. Now this is such a fast process. You can try it several times. You know, that I had plenty of practice doing this. And so I'm going to just blend these until I like the look of it. I'm going to put a big clip here just like that painting, so I don't want to get too careful about getting this completely covered. I'm just going to do a general job right here. And the wave's going to cover this portion. So here's something you can do when you're trying to work fast. I especially use this on large surfaces. When I want to see more yellow here, more red here, I want more blending, and it's kind of across a distance on my picture, then instead of dragging the brush in between those two things, I'll do this. I'll go yellow, red, yellow, red. You just go back and forth with the brush, hitting each spot, and look how it evenly distributes. So you can do a very fast and efficient job of blending these colors by just tapping the different colors that you want to start looking the same. Now when I blend over them, the red and the yellow is a lot more equalized to whatever degree I want it. Now this is still, it's nice and humid today in Arizona, and so that's keeping my paint from drying as quickly as it normally does. So I actually have more time to work this. So it's kind of fun to pull your brush through these colors after you blend them. And you can just make the impression of some clouds coming across the sun. Look, I'll grab my redder area and I'll just use that for clouds. We're just going simple today, so I'll just use this kind of downward stroke, just using the fat side of my brush to create some kind of an ovalish shape right across the brightest area. Just pulling the dark into the light. Trying to make some texture in my sky. Okay, how's everybody doing so far? Not that you have to be. I didn't try to make this like you have to be painting along, but I just, I really want you to take the liberty to tell me if anybody's kind of feeling left behind, or if you just feel like people in the future are going to want me to repeat that. You can actually be a big help to me by making this video more useful to future viewers. Okay, I'm done fiddling with my sky. I think that's sufficient. You can see it's quite a bit more red than the first one I did, and that's fine. Red sky, yellow sky, it doesn't matter too much to me. I just want a good looking sky, and I want to know that I can make it whatever color I want. So with my projects, I feel like once I prove the concept, I'm ready to move on. That way I don't feel like I'm much of an artist, more of a researcher. That's what I identify with more. So then if you want to do like the little highlight, I did some clouds up in there. I did the edge of a cloud. You can just get some yellow and white. We're going to paint over all this area, so I'll just grab some yellow and white. Mostly white, tiny bit of yellow. And if it looks like I've got, some dark area that I can just line with a bright color, like I could just put the bright edge of a cloud in here. And just by kind of strategically putting it where I already have a soft edge, and I can just have, a quick impression of the outline of a cloud getting backlit by the sun. Let's put one up here too. Just put a line. This one I'm not even paying attention to existing shadows. I'm just putting a line up over the top. Feel like there's some things you can paint, and we've all just seen it so many times, that when you see it, that's what it is. When you see that bright line in the sky, it's the first thing that registers is, oh yeah, that's a cloud getting backlit by the sun. Do another one in here just for giggles. You'll see that, if you don't already know it, I've really favored the long end of the brush in my years as a painter. It's just become my favorite way to paint. I don't think it's by any means the way or a better way. Just this is my preference. I always use the long end. So you'll see me doing many techniques by just pointing that long end of the brush at the canvas and then kind of using it like a pen. I do a lot of side to side combined with up and down with just that long point of the brush, and that allows me to quickly go through a texture of brush strokes. You know, I've got a bunch of brush strokes everywhere, and I can just quickly go through it and cross over any brush strokes that I don't really like the look of. It just, you know, it's a technique that allows me to work quickly, because the brush, I don't feel like I have to do this painterly stroke. I just have that long end and I just move it around. And some of that, I think, is the motor skill of your arm getting really familiar with the distance from the canvas. So time spent with it here, it maybe has more smooth strokes and contact with the canvas. So now I want to put some cliffs in this picture. Whoever said white area in the sky? No, you don't have to leave a white area in the sky. I did that for fun. That's the effect. And so you can see in my picture that in that first one I did a big bright white area. And so that's an option. If you want that real big glare that's behind the wave, you can do that, but it's going to look good without it, because a sky looks like a sky, you know, and if it looks like a sky behind a wave, then I've got a picture, so I'm not too concerned with exactly how that comes out. But I am glad Ben said that, because I did start this out by doing white and then yellow and then red, and that is the setup to do at the area where the sun is shining. So the more I leave that bright and a yellower shade of white, the more it's going to look like the sun is right there. And so this is good for me to plan ahead and think, if I want to have that bright area right behind this wave, then I'd want to move the sun down to there. But let's just do it. Let's just do it. Because then I can show you two things. So if I want the sun up here, I just leave that bright. If I don't want the sun in the picture, no, you don't have to leave it there. I think you could just blend white, yellow, and red all together, and it'd still look like an all right sky. But that graduation from white to yellow to red is the key element to making it look like it's really glowing, and how much more if it's concentrated in a circle area where the sun is. So watch, I'll add some additional light to this. This is the nice thing about just memorizing a system of brush loads. I can just go yellow, a little bit of red. Remember, it was like 4 yellow, 2 red, something like that. So I'm going to do a lot more yellow than red, and I'm going to blend this in, and then I know that I've got white mixed into it, so I'll blend that in, and now I've got a color that very quickly matches my sky. It's yellower, so I can add some red, but the point is that this is a very convenient thing to be able to quickly come back and use this same method to touch up anything in the picture. So I don't need this to be a spot-on match, because I've got all these colors happening, and I know that they're helping each other. The differences are good, not bad. So I'm not going to sweat it if I don't have things looking exactly the same. Okay, so my point in putting this paint on is so that I can reapply my yellow and then white. Yellow and white, I've got my bright spot, just like in that first picture. So now I can just blend this yellow to the white. I can make it round if I really want to make it look like the sun right there. Now I've got 2 bright areas, and you know what? It just doesn't matter. If the picture looks good, then the picture looks good. You know, I definitely don't feel like, just because I talk a lot about what would naturally happen, those comments for me are useful tools. It's just trying to have understanding. They're not rules. Tools, not rules. That's not bad. I'm going to remember that. They're tools, not rules. Okay. And so a tool that I can use is wherever I want to have a bright spot look like it really is something, then I just surround it by a yellower shade of whatever atmosphere I'm working in. So now I'm all set up to do my brightest spot with all that splashing wave right over that area. And if I need to come back and adjust it, it's very simple. Okay. Now I'm going to start putting my clips in. So I'll start with a color very similar to this sky. And I'm going to lose some of this red. This is a really red sky. Maybe I'll leave this side with the red, but this I'll cover up. And it'll probably look better for it. So yellow and red. And that was a big blob of red I just put on there. So I'm going to need to add more yellow. So you see me going ahead and starting to mix this. I'm mixing this together. And then what I'm going to do is, in order to make this look like rock and not sky, I do need to add some brown to it. What brown is, just like I said before, before I had everybody online, I was explaining that in my lineup of colors, I have brown, which just functions as a dark orange. So when I put this in, it's just a shortcut to adding black, because it's going to get to the color I want faster. If I'm always working from, like, let's say I want to get a dark grayish orange, and I put my red and yellow, then I got to add black, some amount of black and some amount of white to get there. But I could get to that same result with just brown and white, and the margin for error is much smaller. So, you know, it's like the amount of information you're working three-dimensionally is so much greater than the amount of information you're working within with just two dimensions, right? So if I just have two colors blending back and forth, I can much more easily and quickly get to the result I'm looking for. And that's all brown is a shortcut with two colors instead of three colors. Trying to work with orange and black and white, red, yellow, black and white. I can just gradually add brown to this to start getting the look of some cliffs. So I'm going to pull this way over here and make sure that it's at least a little bit darker, because this is backlit, so the face of it needs to be darker than the sky. And so if I don't have that, this painting is going to look it's going to look maybe a little bit backwards. At least to me, it will. I won't be happy with it, because I want the light. Something that's always been real important to me is having the light look very believable. So I'm going to add a little bit of brown and white right now. Okay, so this gives me this distant grayish color, and then as I get closer in this picture, and you can see me using this just like a cut brush. You know, I like these angled brushes. Like, just push it straight at the canvas, drag it slowly with a good amount of paint and water if you need it. Makes a nice straight sharp line. Very easy way to make an edge like this. But you can also do it just by doing little dabs, or however you want to shape this. Color is what I'm more concerned about than the shape. So I'm just kind of making a random stair-step line to look like the edge of a cliff here. So the reason I want a dark orange is because I want lots of this orange atmosphere mixed with what I'm imagining to be a grayish brown rock by the ocean. I'm just thinking of, you know, when I go out to California, I see some blackish colored rocks when they're wet. And then when they dry out in the sun, they look like kind of a sandy color. So that grayish color, dark grayish color, mixed with atmosphere. I've got bright atmosphere going over the top of it, making it more orange. So the closer I get, the less I want to see that. So now I'm just going to put more brown in here. And maybe I can just put a couple little hills of this without even adding any additional color. If the paint is still wet enough, then you might be able to just do it like this. Put some brown in, blend it downward. I think I want to do some more layers in here. Let's put one up here. Here, we'll put one. I'm changing my mind as I go. Let's put one kind of just to the side. I've got my most distant layer. I've got one closer here. And then you can add extra atmosphere to your picture by making everything a little bit lighter at the base. I learned this from Bob Ross. True story. I'd watch him Saturday mornings, and I was always just so amazed at how quickly he achieved these kinds of effects. And so one thing I learned from him was adding white to the base of the distant mountains to make it look like a fog was settling in. But if I really want this to look like this atmosphere, then I don't want to always just add white. If I want it to look like that color light is shining into this, I just need to add that color to the white. So that seems simple enough, right? So I'll lighten that up, and to me that looks good. Just adding white looks good enough right there. So I'm going to just leave it. And then I'm going to add another layer. So I'm going to put more brown in here. And the brown all by itself makes it look like grayish rocks that are being turned more orange colored in the distance. Because it's brown mixed with the white. Brown and white is the same kind of result you'd get from orange and a gray. Between gray and orange, it's just brown and white. Okay, put another one there, and maybe we can do another one still. Maybe after I paint that wave in there, I'll put some additional rocks. See if anything comes to mind. So if the paint dries on you, this happens a lot. You know, when I do workshops, paint drying is the #1 concern. It dries fast. How are we doing on comments there? Are they all showing up top?
Yeah.
All right. Doing good. So, one of the #1 concerns, paint's drying fast. It's hard to blend. Really, you know, you just start over. This is why I think it's helpful to have a system for all of these colors. I know that this is mine. I have colors rather than broken down into the name of the color. I have them categorized by their purpose. So I have my sky color, I have my rock color, and so my rock system is brown and white with my sky system mixed into it. The further away I want it to appear, and that creates my distance. So if it dries, just start over, add your sky color, then add your brown and white cliff color, and I think gaining the confidence to just blast right over your picture with those colors is a key component of that. You know, it can be a scary thing, I know. Okay, I'm going to put one more layer of cliff in here, then we're going to start on the water. It's here. Now, when you see me really working this with my brush, all I'm doing is looking for any long strokes. So for instance, this is a fast way to get natural looking textures in a picture. I have a long stroke like that. I'm not going to try to turn that into a rock. I'm just going to try to destroy the appearance of a brush stroke. So I'm going to go across any long line that I see and just break it. Break that line, break that line. And the more I just break lines apart, the more it becomes this random feeling texture that can be imagined to be a rock or dirt or wood, depending on the color combinations that I use. And so the more I just use one of the smaller corners of my brush, a light touch, and just go through and break apart the larger strokes that I see. For me, that's just a lot lighter work on my brain than trying to paint an object, trying to foresee the object and paint it like all the details that I feel should be there. Okay, so it's kind of like the artist, the sculptor that said, "I just cut away everything that doesn't look like it." That's a famous quote from somebody. I just can't remember who said it. Okay, so now you can see things getting less orange as it comes forward, and I've got it nice and dark. This leaves me room, putting that brown in with less and less white leaves me lots of room to do highlights if I want to do later, putting little spots of orange reflection or something from the sky. But now it's time to put a wave crashing against this. So I'm going to rinse out my brush and start working in greens and blues. I always keep a towel handy that I can just run my brush through. I just grab it, squish the excess out of it. And so now you can see it's not very clean. I have lots of paint in there, but I'm going to be working with so much paint, it's not going to matter. So let's shape this wave first. And so I'll use, how about I just mix some blue and white, because that's easy to cover. Any scrap color that you have is just fine. You know, we're going to paint over this, but I want to help you to understand the shape of the wave. So I'm going to put an oval shape that's maybe going at this same height as this rock. I'm going to scale it to this rock, have it crashing this way. And so we've got an oval like this. So think of this as a complete oval that I didn't paint. Well, we just had a light randomly go out there. So think of this as an oval that I just didn't complete. And the top of it is tumbling over as it speeds this way. And I'm well aware that there's all these different shapes to waves. I know they're real diverse, but I just noticed that I like this better. This feels like a nice natural shape. So as I'm building this wave, I'm conscious of this for my direction of brush strokes. So maybe this here to help this along. Let's just make this oval. So you don't have to paint that, but I just want you to visualize it. Okay, now to put this in perspective, I'm going to put another one right next to it to the right. It's higher and further to the right. It's going to go like that. So the bottom is going to come out diagonally toward this corner. The top is going to go up diagonally to this corner in order to create just some simple perspective, make a vanishing point to this wave as it's traveling to the left. Okay, so then make a few more lines, and if you just make these bigger and bigger as you make this same shape, and I think not making them exactly the same is good practice because it makes a more believable structure to the wave. You know, I can kind of start to imagine which direction the water's kind of blasting out over the top of this. So I've just got these light lines that are, it's kind of like drawing, you know, I'm just sketching out my wave. Let's put a little bit more paint on the brush. And go here, let's do a little bit more there. Okay, so something like this, where you can see the base coming out this way, the top going that way, and then you've got that top curling over. So this is a great guide for me as I'm doing all my different colors. I don't lose track of the direction that I want my brush strokes to be. So the first thing I think would be fun to do is just to dive right into that bright illuminated middle right there. And so blue gets greener as it gets brighter, just like red gets yellower as it gets brighter. They're both moving toward yellow as they get brighter. So let's grab some of this green. This is that phthalo green. Okay, I'm going to do some with out of the can, and then I'm going to just grab the tubes and do the exact same thing. So right here in my first little oval, this is where I'm going to make the furthest visible edge of my colored water. I'm going to put that green on there. I'm going to add white to that green. And I'm not going to worry about doing a lot of details. I'm just going to do brush strokes in this direction. That's all I'm going to do for the texture of this water, because the colors are going to do a lot for me, just the colors. Who knows, it might even look better than when I actually try to do the details. Okay, now I'm going to take blue, and I'm not going to add white to the blue because there's already white in that green. I just want white added wherever I'm adding green, because it's getting greener as it's getting brighter. So now I'm just taking blue, and you can do this the opposite way too. You can start at the base with the blue and then add green and white as you go up. So I'm taking this brush and just doing strokes in the direction of these lines. Now, this is how I've started, I think, just about every wave I've ever painted, is just by doing a bunch of brush strokes in the direction that I imagine the water flowing. So I explained this in the video I just released of this wave picture too. But you know, this is where we're looking through the most water. This is where we're looking through the greatest distance of water. And so that's why it has the most color. But I want, you know, imagine this blown up to you know, 10 feet wide. It's covering my whole vision. So when I look at this side of the picture, if it's real life size, I'm looking at a different angle now, and I look here and I'm looking right through the wave. Now I'm looking up and through this portion of the wave. And so there I don't want all that color because it's just a tiny bit of water. So that's why I really tried to get that gradient to be gradual. So I'll use a system like this where I go the lighter greener color to the bluer color, and then make everything more orange as I move to the right. Everything that's above my deep water, that is. So let's do another row of it. This time I'm going to pull out the tubes of paint. So watch this. This is fun. This is phthalo green according to Grumbacher. Okay. Just going to put it right on the canvas. And then I'm going to grab some white. This is basic. This is from Michael's. This is from the art store, and I had run out of my Grumbacher white, so I just grabbed this one. And it's fun to just compare the difference, you know. Though definitely not your traditional way of painting with acrylics, I bet. It's just squirt them right on the canvas, but you know, I guess I just got used to doing it out of cans, and so this is how I do it now. Then I'll grab my phthalo blue. So that was phthalo green, this is phthalo blue. And we can see just how much more saturated these colors are than what's in the cans. They are more saturated, you know, that's why people buy the more expensive paints a lot of the time in tubes, because higher pigment ratio. Okay, so green at the top. Let's mix that with this white. And that's really not very different at all. And I'm going to spread that out until I've got it thin enough that it's not going to completely dominate my blue when I drag the blue into it. Okay, then I'm just going to pull the brush strokes in this direction. And then I'm going to take blue and start blending that into it. Right here. Now I do like that dark blue look. That's much darker. I don't think it's that it's darker as much as it's more concentrated and it didn't get nearly as affected by the white. But, you know, this is a real testament for getting those high pigment paints in tubes. When you're ready to do a nicer piece, you can see why people would prefer to use it out of a tube. I really like that bold color. Okay, so now I'm going to try to do this while it's still wet, but it doesn't need to be done while it's still wet. If you mix either of these colors, either the green or the blue with red, you'll have an excellent color for the reflection. So I'm going to do that right now. And then that's going to make a grayer color, and I could probably just carry some of that mix over to start turning this grayer. I have to get grayer and then more orange as I move this way. This is just a comparison of these two different kinds of paints. Another thing about these tubes is they leave a little more texture. I think the texture is a little more preserved. It doesn't shrink and pull tight as much as the paint in the cans does. All right, I'm just getting the excess paint out of my brush. You can do that on a towel if you don't want to do it on your painting. And so then the next thing I'll do is get red. So here's a little bit of red out of a tube. We'll do that one first, just so that I'm using a little bit of both. I'm using my acrylic tubes and the paint out of the can. So watch what happens. I'm just going to make this kind of scrap area right here. I'm going to grab a little bit of white, and because it's easier and faster, I'm just grabbing the white right out of my can. So I've got red, blue, and white for reflection on this wave. And that can be reflection of this orange sky, because that, when it mixes with blue, is going to make a gray violet. It can be reflection of the white water, because the white water that I haven't painted yet would also make kind of a violet colored reflection on this. You know, it's really simple. With reflection on blue water, everything kind of just turns toward violet. It's always that color mixed with a lot of violet. And so red is a good shortcut, whether it's on top of the green or on top of the blue. I'm going to add a little more white and then just kind of hit this wave in different spots with that long end of the brush with some of this color. I'm just pulling it in the same direction that I did. Put some there, some there. You can see I'm using pretty fat strokes, and I'm not trying too hard to make it clean and pretty. Just being very mindful of the direction of those strokes. That's what I really want to be conscious of. Okay, I'll do more of that later. I'll do more of that reflection later when we're putting reflection on this water down here. I guess it's worth showing this to here. Watch what happens. I'll take a little red out of my can, so I'll take this quart of red now. So this is different than that tube that I just used. But my result is going to be very similar. Let's put red. This time I'll just put it right on that green. I'll grab some white. The opposite colors, red and green, or I should just say opposing colors, are going to get darker. So I've got kind of a darkening effect that's going to make it look nice and shadowy. And then as it mixes, I've just put white in my brush so that I'm simultaneously adding the white and getting that light reflection color at the same time that I mix the red and the green. So the red kind of goes away, mixes in with the green, and gives me this nice reflection color. And that reflection color is going to make a lot more sense once it's reflecting something. Right now it's just kind of pointing towards empty, unpainted space. Okay, so in here, I want to do the same system, but less intense. So I want to just have a grayer green. So the first thing I'll do is, instead of using this vivid phthalo green, I'm going to just add yellow to green, because a yellow green is very good for dark greens, but it does not make the same vivid bright green as just getting a green pigment. So yellow and green, here we go. Yellow and blue, I'm sorry, not yellow and green, yellow and blue. Yellow and green would be very intense. Now I'm going to add a lot of blue, because I don't want this to be a green green, I want it to still be a blue green. And I just want it to be less intense than the paint that it's next to. So now I'm adding the white to it to get it to look similar in intensity to this one. And I'm going to pull some of that over to this spot, because I don't have much space to work with here. And I want to start turning this water transparent a little bit sooner. So some of these bright green areas, I'm just going to change those to this less intense green that I've got going here. Yellow, blue, and white. Okay, so we'll put that in here. Now I can be pretty messy in here, as long as my brush strokes are just moving this direction. Just consciousness of the direction, that is the number one thing when you're doing water. Whether it's water across the surface or water in this wave, consciousness of the direction. The strokes create a texture, and the texture is a very big influence on, you know, what we perceive as water. Okay, so now I'll do the same thing to the right of this one, and that one I'm going to put more, I got to make it even grayer. So I can do that by adding the opposite color, which would be red, or I can just do it by adding black and white. We haven't done black and white yet, so let's just do that for fun. Oh yeah, and way number 3 would be adding brown, which would be like adding black and white. So how about less talk and more doing? Let's go yellow and blue. Let's get our green. Now this is going to make a very yellow green, which maybe I want, because I got to start moving it toward orange right here. And so now I think I'm going to just put black and white, because I've got to make it light enough here. And then I'm going to make sure that that color blends into this color. I want a gradual change right here. I'm running out of space, but as long as I get to that orange color by the end of the picture, it'll be good. You know, sometimes all I need is just a little tiny spot of that finish, you know, to let the imagination do the rest. Okay, so I'm putting my grayer and yellower green in here. And then next, how about I just do black and white on this one? So this is going to get even thinner now as the light is shining through it. I think it always needs to have, I probably don't want to go true gray, because these are not complete opposite colors. So that the gray would be when I have, you know, colors mixing with each other that are completely opposite, and these are not. So as I'm moving toward yellow, I probably want to just make this the grayest color, but then still add a little bit of my orange sky in there. So maybe instead of black white, maybe I should be using brown. Okay. But, you know, either way, if you mix the gray with this green, it's going to look good. Okay, so now I'm mixing that, and I've got to add lots of white. This all needs to be getting brighter and closer to the sky color. And so I'm really going the right direction. This gradient is going really well, but here's the problem, is I'm just running out of canvas. And so I need to hurry up and get this color turned into the orange. So orange has got to be my next color. And what I'll do is just kind of blend all these colors together so that it maybe hits this transition a little bit sooner. You can see it starting to form. You can see that gray color. It's starting to look like orange light being visible on the other side of that wave. So I'll do that right now. Red and yellow. Now we're just going orange to finish off the wave. Red, yellow, and white. And if you have orange, you can get orange pre-mixed way easier than using a red-yellow mix. So we do our orange here. Add some white, because when it hits all of these colors, it's going to get darker. And I just always have to be conscious of the brightness, of the darkness of each element of my picture as I'm getting the color. I kind of think of color as where it is on the rainbow first: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet. I get it there first, and then darken it or lighten it from there. That's my workflow for color. Okay, I've got some good transparency going here. I'm going to add a little bit more white to this and make sure that it's not, I don't want it to be brighter than the sky. That's not going to look right. It's not going to look right if I go brighter than the sky. So here's a good trick, when light shines through water. You can do this if you want to. You can leave it out. Your painting will still look great. But when light shines through water, the edges of that water will send the light a different direction, and the effect is a shadow around the edge. So I just put water in my brush. That's all I did. A little bit of water so that I can manipulate this further. It's still a nice dark color in comparison to the sky. So watch, I'm just going to make a real, what's the right word? Maybe squirmy edge, just to kind of making it go all over, like just imagining water getting stretched apart. I wouldn't want to put too much thought into the exact shape. I'm just zigzagging the line all over so that it maybe looks like just the ends of a lot of little bits of water shooting out off the end of this wave. And what's going to make that look like water even more is when I come in here and put the brighter color coming all the way up to that edge, but then not all the way over it. So let's make some bright orange where we're going to see the sky coming through this way. Red, yellow. Okay. Is anybody making good progress on a painting out there? I'm curious. I haven't seen a comment in a while. And so let me know how progress is if you're painting along, or if you've stopped just to watch and take it in. I know that I load things up with tons of information, so that's fine if you're just doing that. Okay, I've got orange.
It's probably hard to paint and comment.
Yes, it is. It's hard. Good. Good insight. Yeah. I'm not doing it. Imagine if I was trying to comment back while I'm trying to do this. Okay, this is why I need time. Okay, so I mix this color in here. Even if this was completely dry, I could just use water to do this effect. Real water, not the water in my painting. So I can just blend this right up to this edge. Just little dots of paint that come close but don't destroy my edge here. And what I want to do is just make sure that I put enough orange so it's starting to get real muddied up by that color I have. So red and yellow, a little bit of white, and I can just reload that as many times as I need to, but what I want to do is bring it right up to this edge and then maintain that so that it has the effect of the edge of that water stopping the light. This is what we always see, is that outward edge of the water stopping the light. And then you can even make layers to it. So I kind of put the paint there, and this was a little happy accident here, as Bob Ross would have said. I created another edge and kind of have this overlap. So now I can just use that one. So I'll put more orange on here. And red, yellow, white. This is where I really want to see through that wave, so I'm not going to be afraid to put a lot of my orange color on there. Now I'll bring that up to this edge. I'm making a new edge so that it kind of looks like I've got my different layers of my drops of water flinging out off the end of this wave. Okay, But as I said before, we don't want to get too obsessed with detail on this one. That's detail work that you can have fun with. If you're experimenting with all these techniques later, you can have fun with that one. So here I've got the transparency that I'm looking for, and it's time to maybe add a little bit more reflection to that wave. And so I don't know, maybe I'll do the reflection. I'm thinking if I want to do it now or if I want to do it after I get the white water added. I think what I should do is add the blue. So I've got this, okay, I changed my mind. Thinking out loud, I'm going to slow down and try not to leave everybody behind. I've got this gradient that's going from my green water to my transparent water, and that's all above the blue. But the blue stays blue. It's all deep water, and that all just gets blended up into this. So I don't need to do any of that work to all my dark blue here. So I'm going to put this dark blue right here. And this is out of the can now. This is the blue right out of that can. And it gets quite a bit darker when it dries. It goes on lighter. And then that's just going to blend with this. It's going to get kind of a greenish color where it blends, which is great because that's the natural effect that water has on light too. So we're just going to make brush strokes in the direction of those initial sketched strokes. And that'll be enough. Now, again, even if this paint was dry and not blendable, as long as I came back with whatever colors I was mixing and just kept all my brush strokes in the directions of those initial guides, then it's going to turn out all right. It's going to be good. I'm going to take a couple more of these spots that are less blended and just pull the bright color down into the dark color up into the light one. And I can keep going back and forth and back and forth with that. I can grab some of this orange, put it down here, kind of an oval shape. It'll start to look like a more detailed piece if I really try to take time to put some spots. Then maybe if I make more than one spot, try to connect them together in a couple areas. Maybe these two come and connect together. And it looks real watery when you have that look of edges coming together and then trying to round all of your edges, avoiding things that look like they have corners. Makes it look a lot more watery. But in this painting, I want to move quick, get through it, just have the impression, because sometimes imagination does a better job than what my hand can do. And now I'm going to put reflection on there. So same thing, I'm just going to mix red, blue, and white. And I could use that phthalo green with the red as well, but I like the way that red, blue, and white came out, so I'm just going to use the base of my painting as a palette. Color first, lightness next. I get this nice violet, and I'm just going to be careful to make all of my strokes in the same direction that I've been going in. I think it looks good if I try to keep them on the dark areas. See these dark areas? I'm going to try to keep those along these dark areas. Water has a way of kind of making what's under the water and kind of mirroring shapes of what's under it with what's above it, because they're both affected by the shape of the water. So this creates that effect if I put this on, if I kind of keep it along one color, on the darker colors. Something that I found that adds a nice effect to my picture. I'm actually not sure how lifelike that is. I just like the way it looks, you know. So let's put a bunch of this reflection color in here. We want less and less reflection. As we move this, we want this to be darker. So I don't want to super load this up with that reflection color. This is enough. Right here, that's enough. And then we'll put more in here as we progress in the painting. Okay, time to do some splashing white water. The way I'm going to do that is I just really want to have these colors dialed in. And so I'll start with this brush, then I'm going to move to this bigger brush that I mentioned and get my splattering, my spray look by dabbing this bigger brush. But first I'm just going to put my foam color in here. Where it's shadowed is where it's going to be the most blue. I want to explain this before I do it because I feel like I have my thoughts more collected when I'm not moving. So this is the color of the water, and as it reflects the sky, it turns toward this more gray violet, right? So we want wherever it's the most reflected to the sky and the least transparent, which is when you have all those millions of little water drops, it's tons of the outside reflection off the sky. So that's where it's going to be the most this grayer color. But where it's under the wave, it's not going to have as much of that light. So if you really want to dial in this effect of the spray being lit up, then we want to have bluer light under the wave and much more gray violet light on top that's moving toward yellow as it gets brighter. Now I'm going to show you how to execute that. Okay, white. Everybody knows that white water is white. So that's the easy first step. We'll just put that in there. And then I know that I want this to be blue, so I'm going to go blue and white right in here. So I'm making this just inside of that first oval that I drew. I'm just putting it right in that first oval. And that happens because when a wave's tumbling, it's like a hamster wheel. It's pulling up all the white water that tumbles and pulling it back up inside of the wave. So it's just trapped in here spinning around like a washing machine. I'm going to put blue in here, and that's going to be my color for right up under this wave. And then I'm going to add red to it because red and blue make a nice shadow. Red and blue, let's do both of those. So a big cloud of white water has a shadow just like a cloud in the sky. Same thing. And I very commonly just use red and blue to make shadows on water. So red and blue mixed make this nice gray violet, and I'm just going to put a shadow on the base of this rolling blob of white water. It's just a red and blue mix. Just goes right at the bottom, and I'm leaving less of it as I go higher into this spinning area. And it looks like I went a little heavy on the red, so I'll add a little bit more blue down here. Now while I have that color, I might as well just take some of it and put some reflection on here. So right up here by that line, maybe you've got some green in here. You can take that same color, just make some little brush strokes and pull reflection right from that cloud of spinning water and just put it right on the wave while you've got the brush in that color. But you can also wait till later and remix it and put it on. I don't want to bog anybody down with too much tasks at the same time. Okay, so I've got my reflection of my water. I've got this spinning white water here. Okay, now as it comes out here into the light, this is where I want to start using more red, less blue. So we're still going to do a violet, but this is going to start getting more red from the sky. And so since I'm not going to over talk the details of why this happens. I'm just going to add more white, but this time I'm just not adding as much blue because it's not under that wave. It just doesn't have as much of the blue light in there. So red, there's still blue in it because my brush is filled with blue. It still is the blue water. It's just less of it because it's in all of just being hit by all of this light from the sky. So look at this attractive gradient now, where it's going from this bluer color to this more light pinkish hue as it's moving into the light. And so that has a very illuminated natural look just by using that color gradation. Okay, the next color I'm going to use after I've gone heavier on the red and it's definitely more white. So the next time I add white, I'm going to use brown. So remember, brown is my gray orange. So orange mixing with all these colors makes a gray orange. And everything's moving toward yellow, getting brighter. So if I just use brown, it makes the effect. And so those colors that you see in this one that's finished up here, those redder colors in that white water are done by using brown in my brightest areas. And So I wouldn't want to go this intense with all of that. I don't want it to look like this, because that would be too much like the sky. It wouldn't look like this big blue wave anymore. So I just use a little bit of brown to get it to have that effect. So white, and this is probably a good time for me to switch to the bigger brush. Can I just move that canvas? Okay, so if you really want to get a good effect of splashing water, then you really got to destroy a brush. So this is of the two that I brought, this is the cheaper of them. Let me look at these side by side. I've got my Purdy and my Wooster. Sorry, Wooster, but you are not as good of a brush as Purdy. And so I'm going to destroy that one. And this is one way to do it. You just, you could just jam it on something. Sometimes it helps if it's wet. Something that I'm not going to do here in Todd's studio is spin it like an LED, like you're trying to make a fire like that. But it's going to fling all over all these nice screens and decorations. We're not going to do that. So you can just jam that brush into something and just really flare it out. And that's really going to help me to have good looking white water. Okay, so now a brush like this is really ideal for this effect. Let's get some brown. Okay, a little bit of brown. It's more brown than I need. And then I'm going to grab some white and I'm just going to dab this. Let's get the excess out. I got a lot in there. Now, be creative with whatever tools you want to use. This is just what I had to get this splattering effect with this white water. I'm going to try to make different shapes. I don't want to just make it a circle. It helps if you make some separate shapes and avoid making everything circular. So my paint dried here a little bit. And I lost some of I really liked that gradient. So I'm just going to make it again. But I'm going to do it with this brush instead. So I had blue and white. So let's put some blue in here. Let's put some more white. And then that color just got redder as it moved toward the brown. So I'm just going to dab this to mix it. Then I'm going to get a little bit of red. And I'm going to dab that into the area in between the brown and the blue. I guess that's kind of another way to think about this, is just the red goes in between the brown and the blue. And this is what makes my white water look real naturally illuminated. Just do a bunch of dabbing. It does look it came out very round. I don't love how round that came out. That's okay. I can fix it with the little brush. Okay, now I want pure white. Where this goes up into the sky, I definitely want to see just some bright, pure white there. So I'm going to rinse that paint out of this brush. Get the excess out of it. It doesn't have to be completely clean. I'm going to tell you why I don't use a fan brush. I don't want to shoot anybody down. You might be able to get awesome effects with a fan brush. But they're just right along a straight line. So it's just hard. You get that one shape over and over and over. And so it was always hard for me to get the random look of what I get with a brush that's got more evenly distributed bristles. But maybe you can do some things that I can't with the fan brush. So I say try it. I say just try the experiment. If it works, then great. You'll have something to teach me. But I just was never able to get the even distribution. So I like to use these big brushes. Now I'm going to go to my pure white. And we're going to just blast this up in the air. And when I have that last little bright highlight, then that's where this, that's when I really feel like this gradient pays off. It's when I have this bright highlight to finish it. Right here. So now, we need one more thing on this wave. I've got my splashing water coming out here. Now what I want to see is that white water tumbling over the top a little bit as well. So I'm going to take these same colors
showed T, the solid, said that he has a couple fan brushes and they were created, he ruined them, and he had multiple shapes.
Okay, okay, very good. If you ruin the fan brush just like I ruined this brush, then you get some really cool results. Very good, thank you. Okay, if I had one, I would try it. I would try that right now, but I just don't have a collection of brushes. But I always felt like it's more satisfying to see other artists develop techniques and just make use of the research that I've done. So thank you for that. It's better, more satisfying for me to see you come up with that. Okay. Now I want to take this foam and move it across some of the tile. I don't want to go all the way up in here because I like the look of just like the smooth water coming over the top. And so I'm going to get my white mix. I'm going back and forth right now. I think what I'm going to do is use my non-ruined larger brush. Let's get, which one would that be? Where did I put that thing? Okay. I'm going to use this one, and you can see that it's got this, much fatter end. I can't get the same effects with this brush that I can get with this one. You can see this is a very tiny end. And so when I go in here and try to do big blobs of paint, it doesn't do nearly as well as a brush like this. So let's take this white. And just go right across this top. And then I'm going to go less and less as it comes this way. And I'm going to add these colors into it. So I'm going to put the shadow under there. That was my red and blue. So let's make a little bit of red and blue. I can also just put it right in here. Let's just do red and blue up here. Just put the color right where you want it to go. This is how you make it all look three-dimensional, is by giving a shadow to this white water. So conveniently, I've got more red right here, Where there's less white water, I just make it more red, so it looks like a little more light coming through it. Down in here, it's in more of a shadow as it's curling down, coming across this white water here. And so I'll just leave that how it is. I did a little more blue here, a little more red. But as long as I just have that red and blue near that lower portion of it. And then I'll, again, be conscious of the direction of my brush strokes. Like that. Now I've got some of that white water tumbling over here. And then, if you want to add some more detail to that, there's no harm in starting to add some of these colors that were in that big curling wave. I can add those in here, where it's getting less and less of the white water. And so I can add the wave color that gradually disappears as it moves over here. So now it looks like it's gradually getting more foamy just by adding those wave colors into this edge right here. All right, cool. I'm very satisfied with that. I like the way that looks. Okay, now I'm going to leave this. You guys let me back up and answer any comments that come in, anything that we're seeing late. Just leave those comments. We'll come back, look at them. And I'm going to start doing this water down here. Now, this is nothing that I haven't done in so many videos already. I'm just going to put my dark blue base here, put a little green in it, then put a bunch of reflection over the top of it, and I'm going to keep my strokes horizontal in order to make this look like, water that's laying flat. The direction of the brush strokes is the key element here. So let me try to make sure I don't have too much white on this. I'm just trying to get some of this white off my canvas because I think that'll make the color lighter than I want it to be. All right, let's go blue with my big brush. We're just going to put a whole bunch of blue in here. Here, let's use that too, because it was nice how this heavy pigment covered that really well. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and add black to this part. This is the darkest water, and we've all seen in the evening when you look at the deeper water, you might see a little bit of light coming through a wave. This is highly exaggerated, and oh no. Todd's going to walk over to look at that light that just went out, and then he's going to see the paint.
Motion sensor doesn't like it. We're not moving over there.
Okay. I really feel nervous about the paint that's on the floor. I flung it. It'll clean up, I promise. The next video is going to be how to clean paint drips off of a hardwood floor. We're going to do a YouTube video. It's going to be great. Okay. All right. I'm just putting lots of blue. Let's add black because we want that to be real shadowy water. I think I need more. Here, let's add a whole ton of this. I love doing this with tubes. You just squirt them right onto the surface. You know, what I love about it is how it just stays there. You have this big goober of paint, and then you just smear it out. I think it'd be really fun to do one of those trowel knife paintings where you just smear the paint with a trowel knife. Okay, now black. And this brush is, you know, you can see it leaving all these streaks. So this is where a smaller brush with finer bristles is probably better if I'm trying to get, you know, if I want a little bit finer looking wave details. But this big brush is going to get that color on there for me nice and fast. Let's try the blue out of the can now. Let's do this. Put this up here. All right, cool. So at your own pace, you can do a very small area like this. If you want to go wet on wet, you know, you've seen my videos, wet on dry, doing waves. I'm going to do wet on wet here because I just really loaded this paint on. And it's going to be pretty easy to get some reflection color on this while it's still wet. But I'm going to do it with the smaller brush because that big one's leaving a lot of streaks. And so let's grab this guy, give it a quick rinse. I'm going to use this old Show It shirt as a paint rag. That's Todd's company, Show It. I'm using his company shirt as my paint rag. There you go. Okay, let's put some red and white across this wave. I'm just doing horizontal strokes, so I don't want to get into a big, long, intensive study on the shapes of waves. All I'm going to do is just make sure that every brush stroke is very consistently horizontal, and then when it gets near this wave, it's just I'm going to start bending them up in the direction of those initial lines that I made. So remember, just like I said before, the direction of the brush strokes can be a real deal breaker on a water painting. You know, in other words, it can be the thing that makes the painting great, is how consistent the angles of those brush strokes are and how well they resemble water because of that. So we're just doing a bunch of horizontal lines across this. I feel like I just have a position of my arm and wrist that I memorize in order to get the angles to be consistent. A lot of times I feel like I'm painting more with my body than I am with my mind, just by having kind of systems for doing things. All right. I'm debating whether to put a little more red in there right now. Yeah, let's put a little more red. Mix it in right here. Let's put some more white. We've got lots of reflection in here. Okay, now I'm just making more of those horizontal lines, and you can see me starting to bend them up a little bit as I come this way. Now I'm going to put a lot of that reflection color under this white water. So it's mixing with the blue. It's real red here, but I'm not going to leave it that way. I'm going to let it mix with some blue and just bring it right up under this big cloud of white water. Right there. But I do like that somewhat unmixed look of this painting. This is something I just don't do quite as often. Is that less refined look just can have a good movement to it. Nice feel. Okay, now if I want a few waves that are bouncing up into the light, I've already established what makes it look like there's light in that wave. So all I have to do is just put a little bit of that phthalo green. So let's grab a little bit of this, put it right in there. I'm going to wipe the excess paint out of my brush here. And then we get a tiny bit of white, just enough to lighten it as it's turning greener. This lighter greener color is just going to go anywhere. Now, I have to tell you, I have noticed that, and you're going to notice as you do this, as you use this green as a highlight, that it doesn't come out on camera. This dark turquoise color of blue and green mixing, that, you know, this is technology that in my opinion needs improvement. Is the primary blue and green on computer screens, TV screens, across the board don't reproduce deep turquoise color. They only reproduce it well if it's bright. So when you get to these darker highlights, you may not see them very well on my painting, but if you do it yourself, you add your turquoise to your blue and mix it with white, you're probably going to see a more intense turquoise. You know, the green and the blue are plenty bright on all the video screens, but I'm giving you this for context, just, you know, so that you can understand when you're watching these videos that wherever you're seeing a deep turquoise, it's probably brighter when you're looking at it in person. And I try to have it be brighter, you know, hopefully that's a good thing, and in your painting you'll be pleased with the results you're able to get. So now watch this. I can take my blue and make little slashes. Again, I want to keep them nice and horizontal, just little slashes across my picture. And so now instead of painting reflection on top of my water, I'm painting water on top of my reflection. You can do it either way. Got little bits of that dark water just showing through this reflected area. Then I'm going to put maybe a couple more dark rocks, some objects in here. Because I want something that this white water is really splashing against. This is missing its shadow too. Here, let's put a little bit of shadow on that white water. So you remember the white water, the white was blue and brown with red in the middle. Those were the colors that I used. So we can do that here. If I need to, because this is dry, I can't just blend my colors again. So what I'm going to do is reapply my white. I'm going to put my blue in here, and then I'm going to have get my shirt, get rid of my excess paint. Oh, I like that color. I'm just going to go ahead and put that up in here. Okay, then red as it's moving toward the brown. That's more in the light area. And actually down here at the base of this, I'm not going to put the brown. So enough of the brown was left behind right here. I'm not going to do it. But it's good to know. If I did need to do it, that's, you know, I know my system. And I can just reproduce it whenever I need to. So now I want to put a shadow. So all I'm going to do is make a higher amount of the red and blue. Put my blue, put my red. This is a nice shadow for anything that's a cloud of water, whether in the sky or on the ground, whether it's spray or just mist. Red and blue make a really nice shadow color for water. Then I'll just use these brush strokes in the direction of the wave to make this feel a little bit more finished. This. Maybe grab a little more of that blue. Do the same technique where I'm putting the faces of the waves across this reflection area. Okay, I'll show you that again. Let's put white and red. Let's make reflection to this white water. I find myself running out of paint quite often. Quite often. And then way, but I just have to get over that and put more paint on, do it again. So here I've got my reflection color. You can see that it's a little bit darker and grayer than these bright colors, so that looks real good on this dark water. Then I can just put the faces of waves right across that. So here's kind of a unfinished looking spot. Let's put a wave there, make sure that they kind of swoop in the direction of the wave, put some real tiny ones, less and less as it gets further away. You want less and less here. One thing I didn't mention, I do forget sometimes to mention the small details that are making something come together. And one of those is making the waves smaller and fewer as you get more distance on the water. Okay, so here we've got some real dark blue, and then wherever I have those big dark blue areas, that's a great spot to put my bright green. So I'll grab a little bit of that green, some of that white, and these spots here will be these glowing waves. There we go. Okay, now I have that. I think I want to put some rocks in. All I'm doing right now is wherever I see things that look a little bit overly blobby, I'll come back and make sure that I've got these horizontal brush strokes, keeping my water looking like water. If it gets too up and down, it'll cease to look like water. So even if it ruins some of the, I feel like I kind of lost some of my shapes in the process of doing that, but I would rather that. I would rather have to redo some of those shapes than lose that consistent horizontal movement of the water. Okay, now let's put a big brown rock, but this time this one is really close. So we're going to put brown around the outside of it, and I'm going to just weave this brown rock into that white water. Okay. And what I'm going to do is put black in the middle of that. Brown first. In the middle of that is going to be black. Okay, now I am right on the verge of finishing this painting. So, just remember as you're following along, this painting is gonna continue on for future reference, and you're gonna be able to come back and look. So make sure that you tell me. I'm gonna really give this some time to play out. So any comments that are on a delay, I'm gonna see them, and make sure I get questions answered or addressed as needed here before I stop this project. So brown on the edge. I'm gonna put black in the middle, because what that's going to do is that brown just gives the effect of a little bit of that orange sky reflecting off of an otherwise silhouetted rock. The black is not, I don't want that to be the color of my rock. I just want it to be very low light. This is facing toward me. And so I'm using black to just be a silhouette, just a shadow. And it makes look how nice it makes my white water look. It just explodes that way. Yeah, let's put one right in here. This is fun. Take this color right in the middle of that white water. Just put a little dot of it and just blend that right down. Blend that bottom edge of it so the white water is just kind of tumbling through the rocks there. Okay, so here, this kind of looks like a beach, doesn't it? Doesn't that kind of look like a beach? Let's do that. Let's make that a beach. Here, lighter brown. So this is facing up at the sky. So here under the wave, let's make it a much grayer brown. And then over here, it's going to be reflecting more sky. So let's just put a little more brown right there. Here, let's do less of the bluish reflection as it moves to the left here. That's cool. That wasn't in the first one. Kind of a fun effect. All right, now I want to take this dark color. So here's my dark black brown mix. I'm going to drop that right down onto this water. So here's the dark color. Wherever I have reflection, I'm not going to put it on my blue spots. It's going where I already have reflection. So I'm putting it on these lighter pinker spots. I'm going to grab some more of it, put it here. I'm putting it right under that rock. I grabbed brown right out of the can just now. I'm just going to put some little splashes of it here, and then I'm going to take black right out of the can and put it right on top of those strokes that I did. Black and brown reflection. So this is a fun effect to just get that real high contrast, completely dark reflection. Makes it look like much more calm water when you have vivid reflections. Now I'm going to blend this a little bit. Stepping back and looking, I'm like, whoa, that is a little bit intense. So we'll just try to go over it a few times, make it maybe not quite as intense. There we go. And then how about some reflection from this? Let's do a little more of that. So this is much lighter, more distant. So this is going to make a lighter, this is going to be more like this light violet color as it mixes. So as I get closer, I want to see less reflection lower in the picture. So it's going to go more toward my watercolor down here. And then I'm just going to add some more of that distant kind of grayish violet to be the reflection behind that. This reflection will look better if it's surrounded by other reflections, so it doesn't look like it's just standing all alone here. So for that, we just need red and white. And then, I think this blue is still wet enough. It's going to mix with that and make this nice violet. So let's just make some horizontal strokes. I'm not really trying to make waves here. I'm just making horizontal brush strokes. That still looks kind of... I'm just going to drag. Here's a trick I always do. I just drag the brush. As this is starting to get dry, but not all the way dry, I'll just take a brush it's unloaded. It's not filled with paint, and then I just drag it across here. Something you can try. Can lighten the colors. But you know what I forgot? The last thing this needs is some seafoam. I forgot to put that in, so that'll be the last thing over here. Let's put the silhouette of this rock. Let's make a couple more rocks on the sand. Just some little dots of black. It's that nice horizontal line that really makes perspective look like it's dialed in, You don't want to have, to make this look like the base of this rock. I want to be careful to keep the lines nice and horizontal, consistent with the water. Put a rock in there, let's put a rock in there. Put this rock going out into the wave, that's kind of fun. I better stop before I start ruining things. That actually doesn't look as good, but I'm going to leave it. Okay, seafoam. Same thing as my reflection. I'm just going to add blue and red to my white to get a gray violet. And then I'm going to make these little seafoam shapes everywhere. I just want to make it maybe a little bit lighter, a little bit darker than the reflection that's there, because it's hard to tell what's what if I have them right next to each other. So this is something you use your own artistic discretion on. Okay. All right, this is the last thing. Let's use a paint lid. I don't want to just mix on top of my painting anymore. So I'm going to put white, red, and blue on this fancy painter's palette. Okay. See, Bob Ross really could have saved his arms by not burning up his energy using that big old palette. He could have just used this little lid. Okay. Red, blue, and white. So to do foam, what I want to do is make, okay, think of lots of shapes getting stretched apart like bubble gum. You got to have strands in between. So you can make your little blobby shape out of just some series of ovals, right? So that kind of makes perspective. You just make this little series of ovals. But try not to leave corners. Try not to leave a lot of corners on that. You know, I'm just kind of making a bunch of roundish little shapes. But then what I'm going to do is make a strand going from that, making it out of more little dots and lines. And I'm going to make that go into another shape. Okay, now I've got another shape here. All right, now what I'm going to do is make a strand from that shape. Okay, so here's a little area coming off. Let's go. Other little shapes using just little horizontal lines. We'll zigzag it this way, zigzag it this way. And what we're doing is making strands that are built out of little shapes. And that's what's going to resemble foam, because I'm manufacturing the same effect that happened to it. It got stretched apart. It was in bigger sections, and the movement of the water stretched those sections apart. I don't want to make too much of it because I don't want to lose the look of my reflection. So I'm just going to do a few of these in here. Now remember, if you make shapes going up or down in this picture, always build them out of horizontal brush movements, because an up and down line is going to be very hard to make it look natural, like natural perspective. It's very difficult to have that look. But up and down movement represents a lot of distance.
Joe, Ben was mentioning that in cinematography they use a dark background behind bright sides of faces and light background behind dark sides of faces.
Oh yeah.
And it looks like you're doing the same thing with the dark rock behind the white water. Do you also do this? Is it a go-to strategy for you to create?
No, yeah. Thanks, Ben, for pointing that out. That's perfect. This is something I think that I do by habit now, sometimes forgetting that I'm doing it because it looks good. You know, I remember mentioning as I brought the black up to that, I was like, oh, and conveniently that kind of makes this white pop out. But yeah, definitely a very good strategy. And I think a lot of people do it much more consciously. Maybe more seasoned professionals will consciously put a dark thing behind a light thing. And so, yeah, definitely the painting, you can see benefiting from that, because if I had this bright spot just surrounded by distant background, then you wouldn't have this bright pop on the edge of that wave. So, yeah, that's a good lesson in composition from Ben there. Okay, I'm just going to do a few more of these little squiggles. So the point I want to make with doing this seafoam effect, it's not just squiggles. You don't just do squiggles everywhere. I did that. If you watch my first How to Paint a Beach Wave video, which has all these views on it now, which is a funny thing, because you just wish so much you could go back to those videos with all the views and make them completely up to par with your current ability, but that's not the way the world works. But I just made squiggles on that one, and you can go and watch and see what that looks like. This is a much better strategy. Build your squiggles out of small, oval, horizontal shapes. So here's a big squiggle, but I'm building it out of these many shapes, and I'm really scrunching these zigzags together if I want it to look like it's in perspective. Bigger shapes built out of small shapes, and then strands that connect them together. So here, this looks like, here's a bigger area. This maybe is some seafoam. So then let's turn this into a strand where they're getting connected together. And let's just build that out of a bunch of tiny little horizontal strokes. Then up in here, I feel like you can take a much more impressionistic approach to the seafoam here. So here's something interesting about the seafoam. It's kind of like flat paint versus high gloss paint. The foam is not going to have sharp reflections of objects because it's a very bumpy surface collecting light from all different angles. So when I come up under here and do this color that does not represent the reflection of this rock, that's going to look like sea foam that is washed up closer to these distant rocks, because the color of it is more representative of the entire scene, like foam would do. So I put a few lines across here. Then I have the edge of my beach going across there. I think it'd look good if I put a few across the wave too. It's always fun to do a little bit of your darker foam color. I added a little more blue. You can see how red that is. Added a little more blue. And so I can put that here. Just put a few blobs of it where it seems like it might be tumbling over into the water. And that's going to dry a little bit darker and make kind of a silhouette effect for my wave. And what I can do to intensify that, because this is kind of dark, I could put brighter colors behind my wave there. So that this, okay, exactly what Ben just said. I can purposely put brighter colors in my wave where I want this effect to really shine. So let's do that right now. Okay, let's put some foam on this wave. I'm being mindful of the direction of my lines here. Going down this way. Let's put a little more of that foam going, I don't know, maybe this way. So down here I don't need to do anything to it, I'll just leave it there. But then when I get down, there's a great big patch of it right there. Okay, but when I get up in here, that's what I was moving toward. When I get up in there, I'm just going to put a brighter color behind it so that it stands out even more. Not that that doesn't look fine, but just like Ben said, we can really enhance the picture, make it more dramatic by mixing a bright background color here. So this is our sky color, just red and yellow. Let's get the right amount of red and yellow. That's a little bit heavy on the red. I'm keeping this rag handy so that any excess paint, I can just wipe it off real quick, get to the color that I want to see. Okay, let's get that nice bright color. Maybe just a tiny bit of brown, just a little dot in there.
T. DeSalle said that he uses your color theory videos in his middle school advanced art class.
Oh, that's awesome. Hey, I want to know where that is. I want to know where that school is, because I want to say hi to him. So if we can get a comment from T, did you say T?
Yeah.
Then I want to say hello to his class and say thank you very much for taking a look at all of my research. That is the most satisfying thing. It makes me so happy. I hope you all become much better artists than I do. Good job, T, for teaching the class too, man. I always have a lot of respect for teachers. You know, our mom is a teacher, and so we have grown up seeing her work hard for low pay, because that's what you do as a teacher. No, you know, I'm sorry if I'm calling your pay low. I didn't mean to do that, but just the noble cause of the purpose being more important than the paycheck. Something that I really relate to. So here you see me putting these brighter
colors. He's in Walker Middle School in Salem, Oregon.
Hey, Walker Middle School in Salem, Oregon. Thank you so much for watching Mural Joe videos. I hope you continue to do that. And if you ever get a chance to leave a comment on one of my videos, I'm going to be looking for you. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm just going to put a few more of these brighter colors in here and just make the strokes in the direction of the wave. Put a few patches in here, because you know waves have thicker and thinner spots as they turn and wind, and big blobs of water shoot out. So just by putting patches of different colors, I can start to get that effect. And the more I try to do detailed windy shapes in there, the more realistic that might start to look. But this is the initial appearance of the effect. It's just just having that color in there. And so now you can see my foam just really popping out right there where it's blocking the light. And that wave is coming over like that. I'm going to put a little bit more of it because I like the look. I like the look of it kind of tumbling. So I'm going to go like this. Take that spot of foam that I already put, red and blue, some white, right here, and just going to shoot that out over into the light. It's getting much whiter as it goes out here. Then I'll just let it get darker and grayer as it goes out under the wave, so I can add other little spots of white water to my wave if I want. That way. Okay, how are we doing on comments? Anybody waiting for a response out there? Because I'm getting ready to wrap this up. I'm going to put my signature on it. And so this is the last call. We're going to put a 5-minute delay on it. Ben said we're on kind of a 5-minute delay. So get your last comments in. I'm going to sign this. I'm going to look for any little details. You can put a little bird flying. I always think a little bit of life makes a picture come to life. A little bit of life makes it go figure, huh? Also, you know, if I make this reflection down here a little bit brighter, just a little bit brighter, so I'm going to take, while I'm up in this lighter color, I'll put that down on these lower areas. Helps this kind of look like it's more three-dimensional. This is curling over and being in more of a shadow, making this foam more bright. Oh, and highlights. It needs highlights. I need to do this bright color and put little highlights on the wall. So, just like I did before, on the first one, I'm going to do that again with brown and white. So orange sky on blue water makes a grayish violet, maybe a grayish orange. If it's a bright enough reflection, it's not turned to violet. If it's enough toward the sky color, it's still orange, but just getting grayer. So brown is my color because that is just that color. Grayish, orangish, purple color maybe when you do brown and white. What I know for sure is that it looks good. So let's put a little bit of it on here. Let's put a little dot of it there. I'm not going to put it right on my greenest water because I want that to stand out as deep water. We're just going to put a few little splashes of this brightest reflection color where it's right under this orange sky. So I'm going to put a little bit right here. There's a reflection. There's some reflection. Some in there, a little bit in here. And then maybe some pure white. Maybe a little bit of pure white in there to finish it off. And as long as these lines stay pretty horizontal, then they'll have the effect of water. So, if you want to put a bird in your picture, look, this is how you make a bird. Okay, you go like this. We want to make, I'm just going to make a little letter M, just like you learn in grade school to make a bird. Just make a little letter M. But the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to stretch it out. I'm going to use my brown. Just going straight out of my brown can of paint. And so I like to do 2 straighter sections of wing. 1, 2. I think birds are my favorite animal, by the way. Okay, and then the M, this is the middle of it, like a little V, and then it's just going to kind of swoop down and then a little bit up again, maybe like a seagull or a pelican. So a little bit of an S shape to that downward stroke. Puts a little bit of perspective to the wing, it makes it look like it's fluttering a little bit in the wind. It is not good for a bird to be alone, so let's put a second bird in there, huh? There we go. Let's put a little dot in the middle for its body. There. Now there's 2 birds enjoying the view there. Enjoying a beautiful sunset. And I'm going to sign my name on there. Let's do that. And what color should I do that in? I think white. Well, white's a common choice for me. I'm going to comes to signing my name. Let's put it right here. Signing the bottom is a very hard thing for me. You know, I was never very good at signing my name altogether. I'll put it here. Feels more proper to put it at the bottom of the picture. I use the long point of my brush like a pen. Remember me saying that? That's what I do to sign my name too. People are going to laugh at my paintings when I'm dead and say, yeah, he was an alright painter, but he never did learn to sign his name very well. His paintings always have this awkward, messy looking signature on. Okay. There we go. All right. Can't tell you guys thank you enough for, first of all, being part of this video. This is largely experimental, and I'm really gracious for you being on board and being part of this group, as I'm trying to just make better and better content. That's what the Mural Joe thing is all about, just trying to make all my research available, accessible, and you're helping me do that by joining an event like this. Also, thank you. You paid $40 to do it this time, which was a big help to my brother Ben. I know that he's really thankful for that, and so I just want to give you a proper thank you and respect for the help and support that you are. It's always very encouraging to me. And so I think that's all I have to say. We're ready to wrap it up. I'll see you in the next video.